Hey guys, this is Vindicator, and today I'm going to be doing a very basic trigger tutorial for you guys. This is the first tutorial I'm doing with the Heart of the Swarm editor. It's 2.0.7. So all I've done is I've started up a new map here and deleted the trigger that's there by default. So if you want to make a new trigger, you just right click and you go to new, and then you'd say new trigger. You just name it whatever you want. I'll just name this trigger 1. And so triggers have three basic things: events, conditions, and actions. We're going to ignore local variables for now. Events are what have to happen for your trigger to start. So there's examples like a chat message. Somebody might type a chat message into the game chat, and boom, if it includes what you define here, this trigger would now run if somebody typed that into chat. I'm just trying to give you guys general ideas. Like time elapsed, you could specify, after 10 game time seconds have passed, a trigger could run. If a unit dies, that would run a trigger if that was the event. If a unit became idle, just standing around, not doing anything, basically not being commanded to do anything. Like if you told a unit to move and it got to its destination and it didn't have any new orders to do, it would end up becoming idle, and then the trigger would run. If units created, you can run triggers by that. If units are clicked, so all kinds of things. Anyway, but all I need you guys to understand from this is that events are what make triggers run. Everything else is completely irrelevant if the event has not been met. Conditions are things that you can define for a trigger to check after an event has happened. It will say it will basically verify that certain criteria is being met, and it's all kinds of different things you could compare. Anything that has numbers associated with it, you can monitor and define whether something should run or not based on that stuff. What, numbers that go into things like life or energy or shields, anything that's a number, you can verify at any given time. So if you wanted somebody to be given, plus 50 health, but only if they had full energy, that's how you would do it. But we'll go into conditions in a little bit. Let me focus on actions though, because actions are what actually make triggers do things. There's literally hundreds, if not, it's probably not 1,000, but there's definitely many dozens of options that you have here. There's categories on the left-hand side, so if you have a general idea of what you're trying to do, like if you're trying to do something with a unit, you could just select that, and then all your options that have to do with units will show up. If you're trying to do something with a leaderboard, you've got that. If you're trying to do something with animations, you've got that. We'll go into actors later. That's more data editor related stuff for the most part, and that's more advanced. But dialogues are like custom UI, basically custom windows and buttons and interface things. If you're trying to do custom interface stuff, you do stuff with dialogues. Variables, we'll be going into those here pretty shortly. They're basically things that contain data, whether they be numbers or pretty much anything else in the game. You can store values and use them at later times to do what you want to do. So for this, let's just do something called a text message, and just for testing purposes, just to teach you guys what actions do. So all this will do is it'll display whatever message I want to or on the screen. And sorry for my custom font, it doesn't show what letters are capitalized and what ones are not, so it's not good from that standpoint. But other than that, all I'm doing is I'm saying, hey, display this message for all players to the subtitle area. And there's different areas on the screen where you can display messages to. Subtitle is where chat shows up at. Error, by default, shows up as red in the middle left of the screen. And you know what? Let me just go ahead just to get this out of the way. I can copy and paste all this, and I'll just change which area all these show up in, and I'll call them what they are, so you can see which areas you can put text on the screen at. Directive is in the top middle of the screen. It usually lasts longer than other types of chat, but it does disappear eventually. Cutscene is in, or not cutscene, but cinematic is in the bottom left-hand corner. It's just a little bit of a bigger font, I believe, and it lasts quite a while too. It might actually need to specifically be told to disappear at a later time. I can't remember. Warning, I can't remember what the difference is between that and error off the top of my head, but we shall find out. Okay, so right now the way things stand is when I type in Vindicator into chat, it's going to display all these messages to all the different places on the map. So Control F9 is the shortcut key to run a map to test it out. All right, so my pretty much blank map has loaded. I'm going to type Vindicator into chat. Boom, there it goes. So you can see directives there. Subtitle and chat are pretty much in the same place. Error showed above the debug area in red, then it disappeared. Cinematic area is at the bottom left, objectives in the top left. And so there you go. All I'm trying to get across to you guys is not what all these chat areas are necessarily. You know, that's cool extra info if you can remember all that. But all I'm trying to get across to you guys is, hey, this is an event that just happened when I typed in my name, and then all these actions happened after the event was met. So when events happen, boom, stuff happens. It's listed in actions. If, you know, none of this was here and I typed in Vindicator, nothing would happen because there's no actions. So conditions, let's do this. All right, I think this is where I'm going to try to introduce variables to you guys. So if I right click here and I go to new variable, I'm going to call this integer 1, and we'll it's already by default, when you make a variable, by default it is of type integer, but you have a lot of different types of variables to choose from. There's no way I could go into all these in one tutorial, but right now we're just using integers, which are just numbers. So that's all we need to worry about right now. We'll go over other stuff later that's shown here because it's more complex. All you need to know is that, hey, we're making an integer, and by default it's 0. If I wanted to change its default value, I could by clicking here and typing in a different number. Notice that the value dot is clicked here, and that's why it shows where I can enter a number. Sometimes other things might be chosen by default. So we'll go into other things about that in a second. But here's what I'm going to do. So right now we have an integer that equals 0, right? So I'm going to do a comparison condition. 9 times out of 10 when you do conditions, you're going to do a comparison. Basically, you're comparing two different things to see if something equals something else, or is greater than or less than, or something like that, or even not equal to something else. So when I click OK, by default it plugs some things in. We don't care about this. So if I wanted to replace the section that's on the left hand side of the equal sign, I'll click on the left bracket here, or left parenthesis, and change this to the variable that I made. I click the variable dot at the top so I can see all the variables in my map, and boom, there's integer 1. Just double click on that, and so I'm saying integer 1 equals 0. So right now, if I were to run the map again, because by default the variable integer 1 equals 0, when this runs the first time when I type my name, it's going to equal 0, so it will work. But if I add an action, it's called modify variable, and I choose my variable, and it says +1 there, what that's going to do is, hey, the first time when this runs, when I type my name and the integer equals 0, the first thing it's going to do is modify that integer +1, okay? And then it's going to run everything else, but now the integer 1 will equal 1. So if I type Vindicator a second time, it wouldn't run because now integer 1 would equal 1. The condition would not be met. Therefore, it would not run the trigger. I'm going to type my name. Shows all that chat stuff. So I'm going to type Vindicator again, and boom, nothing happens. Everything's just disappearing from the first time. So it worked as intended. So you can manipulate numbers like this for a lot of different things in games. You can use any kind of arithmetic to do fancy complicated stuff, but manipulating numbers is in my opinion the key to unlocking a lot of power within the trigger editor. So that's why I'm going over it so early. But anyway, hey guys, thanks for watching and take it easy.